Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is Christina Kalcheva. I am the Senior Program Administrator for the Talloires Network, and I'm one of the organizers for the Amplifying the Voices of Engaged Researchers initiative, which is a partnership between the Talloires Network and the Open Society University Network. Today we have researchers from around the globe representing a wide range of disciplines that meet together over the course of about 5 months to share reflections, challenges, and ideas related to their engaged research. This initiative crosses geopolitical boundaries to support the amazing work that scholars are doing, collaborating with community partners to develop new knowledge and strengthen lasting ties between researchers and communities in which they're collaborating. And we are so excited for this workshop today. Today's workshop is led by one of our participating researchers, Felix Diaz from the American University in Bulgaria. He's joined by several other members of the research cohort, and they're exploring questions related to working with communities to improve or develop professional skills in engaged research processes in ways that preserve Indigenous and Endogenous wisdom. So I'm going to turn the floor over now to Felix to explain more about his work and just welcome you all today. Thank you.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. So, I propose to the whole group of engaged researchers in the Talloires network to have a meeting together, and I just picked up that there was a wonderful response of I think more than those of us here today. So we had to reject a few so that we could make the webinar manageable. So we have today 5 different contributions from different projects around the world. We will start with Miguel Ángel Castañeda from Bard College, although he's going to be telling us about his work in Colombia. Then Patricio Belloy from Universidad Austral de Chile, Martina Jordan from the University of Pretoria, and in the end, myself, Felix Diaz from the American University in Bulgaria, and Mónica Lucía Espinosa from the Universidad de los Andes in Colombia. And the idea is that each of us will talk between 10 and 12 minutes about our own projects and how we address questions related to generally to the mismatch or to the integration or collaboration of academic with indigenous knowledge in situations where we are trying to support communities by providing or by sharing professional skills. Okay. So we will talk one after the other, and I hope we will have about half an hour at the end so that other people can talk about their experience and we can have some debate. Shall I give voice to the first speaker? The first speaker is Miguel Ángel Castañeda. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's me. Well, thank you so much, Felix. As Felix mentioned, my name is Miguel Ángel. Can you hear the image that I am sharing? Okay, first I want to say that is an illustration produced by Chaneida. It's an illustrator in Colombia. It's part of the project that we have with the same community, but I wanted to use it because I want you to see that image and imagining what I am saying. So as Felix mentioned, my name is Miguel Ángel. I am a student of Bard College. I am studying now a master program in human rights and arts. I'm currently living in Annandale, but I'm from Colombia. And for this presentation, what I want to do is offer you a context of the community in which I am working. And at the end of this presentation, I'm going to present a video for all of you. However, I'm going to change to Spanish because I feel better talking in Spanish in this moment. So,
this project is around a school. It's a training school in Cañaverales. Cañaverales is a community made up by peasants and Black people. This is in the south of the Guajira. Just to give you some context about the south of Guajira, or rather of the department of Guajira in Colombia, this is the most northern department in the country, and it is one of the departments with greatest inequalities, social inequalities and economic inequalities. And so this department has different bioenergetic projects, oil and natural gas, as well as wind energy. So it is part of an extensive bioenergetic extraction. Because of safety purposes, we did not publish any photos of the activities performed, and I do hope you can understand this later on when I tell you about this context we're working in. As I mentioned earlier, this community is in an area where it's very close to this community, about 5 kilometers away. There is one of the greatest carbon open pit mines, and it has operated for over 35 years. About 700 meters away, the company Best Coal Company, which is a Turkish company, wants to install a carbon mine, an open pit mine, and the mine has an estimated life of 16 years with a production capacity of about 26 million tons of carbon during that period. In an extraction area, which we know is about 4.8 miles. So they actually risk. It's a risk for the territory because it's a coal mine, and for over 14 years, the community council, the Black people from Cañaverales have implemented different strategies to defend this community and to avoid then this coal mine from opening. So I just wanted to say a little bit about these community councils. Community councils are an ethnic, let's say, community. The community council of the Cañaveral people where I'm working does not have a collective ownership or do not have legal entity enabling them to have collective land, to own collective land. So this has made the project difficult because the company, this coal mine company, does not understand the community council as a valid spokesperson. And so given this context, the project took place. We have focused on two things, basically. First is the production of artistic content by the youth in that community. And secondly, an experimental school that is focused on human rights and also an energy transition. What does this mean? To understand the principles of energy transition and also understanding the context, meaning the territory where they are, whether it is in energy transition, whether it is wind energy or solar energy, or if the territory was understood based on the principles of traditional extraction method. So the methodology was done together with community members who actually contributed on that focus, and the leaders of the community council, the older people, the elderly, participated in this methodology structure. So one of the focuses then with which we have actually geared ourselves towards is the following. to defend the territory, which means not only caring for the environment and the pools of water and animals, but also understand their lifestyle, the lifestyle of the people, the living culture of the Cañaveral inhabitants, as opposed to an environment without human beings, which is pristine. The Cañaverales community has really highlighted the fact that their ancestors have designed the place where they can live better. So the territory itself is like a big garden where their grandparents, their ancestry have worked and cared for so that future generations could live in. So right at the core, of course, you have the food sovereignty. This project has focused on basically the production of artistic visual content, Cañaverales, beyond extraction economies, beyond the extraction as such. We have focused on food as a symbol of the wealth of the community, especially in a context like La Guajira, where this department has greatest inequalities and where there's more people who die out of hunger. So what does this mean? That the wealth of the community means food sovereignty. And this is possible with these bodies of water surrounding the community, and the mining extraction. The mining industry puts at risk. The coal extraction means and implies 10,000 liters of water per ton of coal. So we've also thought together about the fact that if we follow the theories of Becker as an anthropologist, to think that this community understands the water as a common good in three different senses or pillars. First, the water is managed based on traditional knowledge, based on their own knowledge. Secondly, water as such has a certain cultural dimension and spiritual dimension. You can't understand it without this direct relationship with the human beings and also their outlook, biological outlook, and others. And the third pillar is that water, or the use and conservation of water, has a direct impact on the community. So water abundance, if there is such abundance, then the community flourishes in all senses. And the lack of water means also that the community will tend to lower their quality of life. So amidst our workshops, we understood that food and water are the base, the foundations of their community. They are the support of human beings. And Marisol, anthropologists, they call it more than humans, más que humanos in Spanish. So in defending the territory, what is at stake is a spiritual dimension. Yet in the workshops we have performed, we realized that, of course, this is so hard to translate in this type of environment, in a legal environment. In addition, it is a place where the discussion is taking place in terms of ownership, in terms of the deeds the company has to open up that coal mine, and also the development plan. So if the territory is understood as a place to extract oil, gas, or if it is understood as a place where you could actually sow, let's say, crops and guarantee food for the Guajira department. This is a framework, and I just wanted to tell you about it. And now, and he speaks in English,
that was produced with the help of the community and the Colombian government. So we can have at the end a moment to discuss, or if you have any questions about it. Just let me just stop this and share the other thing. So give me a moment, please. Okay, I think that you can see now. Let me know. Yes, Feliz, thank you. Okay, so the video is in Spanish. I don't know, maybe the translation Sorry.
Cañaverales is an agricultural land historically, and this has been thanks to the waters. And through these waters, they actually irrigate 3,000 hectares. And it is a blessing because we can have food safety, because we were great sugarcane producers. That's why it was called that way, the cañaverals. Then we went on to the cotton production, and we have specialized each one of our crops. Bananas, yucca, and wheat, and beans. So this guarantees the potentiality of our territory and our knowledge of how to produce. That's the foundations. That's why we say that the cañaveral produces life. It doesn't destroy it, and it does so through this water.
Well, thank you so much,
pool of
Colombia. La potencia de la vida, the slogan of the government for sure. But yeah, just to focus on this community and the relationship that they have with the water bodies around it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Miguel Angel. So we save questions and comments and debate for the end, and we go one speaker after the other. Our next speaker would be Patricio Belloy from the Austral University of Chile. When you're ready.
Yes, thank you, Felix. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Patricio Belloy, and I'm a professor at the Institute of Economics at Austral University of Chile. I am going to start my presentation. So, a second. So I'm using a double screen. It takes a tiny bit more time. Patience. Stop sharing. And now it should be fine, right? You can see it? Perfect. Okay. For the interpreters, I will try to speak as slow as possible. I am from Chile, you know, and people in Latin America says in a justified way that we speak too fast, but I'll try to do my best to control myself. I'm going to tell you about a partnership we have between our university, Austral University of Chile, and a vocational technical school in the town of Payaco. We are all located in the south of Chile, in an area that it's you know, closer to Patagonia. It's still summer here, although it's cold and rainy. That's most of the year for us. I'm just going to briefly touch on some opportunities in renewable energy for Chile, the origins of this partnership, and the achievements of this collaboration, and some next steps of the project. First, Chile has been traditionally a net importer of fossil fuels, but some years ago, we realized that there's a lot of potential for renewable energy. So the Bloomberg Climate Scope of last year and the previous year actually ranks Chile pretty high, considering variables like the experience, opportunities, and some, you know, institutional, especially and social arrangements to fully develop a matrix, you know, with more share of renewable energy. But there's also something that has been done, like there's, you know, projected megawatts and built megawatts of energy that are already in construction. It is interesting to see, for example, that a country that is not that big, like Chile, can have similar, you know, amount of projects and megawatts than Brazil, which is giant, or a bit more than Colombia, Mexico, Peru, and Argentina, which are larger countries. So definitely there's potential there. And, you know, many people would like to get on board on this because we would like to phase out dirty energy and also, you know, big mega projects that have been harming the environment for, you know, several decades, such as giant dams, for example. So this all started, you know, around 2013 when we were with the MIT Community Innovators Lab on the energy conflicts in southern Chile. As I say, you know, hydroelectric power many times was harming the traditional livelihoods of indigenous peoples. So we were helping, you know, we were trying to find solutions for that. It is then when we started getting interested in this. At the same time, we started a collaboration with the Talloires Network YEPI project, or Youth Entrepreneurship Participation Initiative. And we started working then in the same area with entrepreneurship focus projects. We focused then in the town of Payaco, or the district of Payaco, some 45 minutes by car far from Valdivia, where this university has a seat. In there, we decided, right, to promote, to participate in a program called Economic Democracy from MIT, in which we were looking for solutions that were more holistic to address, problems with employment, problem with the diminishing resources, with forced migration, or not forced, but, people had to migrate to get work, and also, to protect the environment. That's how we got to work with this vocational technical school, a vocational technical school that was working at the time in the energy, but really wanted to work in more renewable energy. First, we conduct an assessment to realize that most renewable energy projects in the region were actually malfunctioning. We saw stuff in bad shape, batteries that were not working, bad installations because of lack of capacity, and also, some like trees covering the solar panels. So we ask ourselves, how is that we can actually help and create, expertise and labor force that can work on this, and we don't have to call technicians from Santiago or from other big cities, and therefore send the money that is produced there in the district to those towns. There was interested then in the school to adopt a training in renewable energy. And at the time, their program specializing in electricity and electronics was suffering from a lot of problems, such as, low enrollment. The students who graduated from there couldn't actually find jobs, or there were very low paid jobs working in the posts of electricity. So we decided, okay, let's go. What can we lose? The university, started this partnership with the school to start thinking about a strategy that we can create, in order to bring renewable energy to the core of the school. There were great commitment from the staff, teachers, students, but also their families. So many people got involved in thinking, a new opportunity for this school. A key decision, of course, was to focus first on knowledge and later on equipment. At those years was completely the opposite for most schools. Here we can see, some students of the school at the left with solar panels in the island of Huapi. It's an island in the middle of the Andes. Yes, in the Andes Mountains. It's in a lake there. And on the other side, we have a lot of staff and teachers working between two vocational technical schools in order to, be able to achieve this necessary knowledge to start teaching it. In a couple of years, we work in to design and include renewable energy in the programs, in the curricula. We created two modules, photovoltaic system management and applied mathematics. For this was key the knowledge that the teachers already had. It's not that we as a university brought all the expertise there. No, it doesn't work like that. They were actually the ones pushing for this, and they were the ones getting to know the last, in technology and suggesting what to do. We just help them with the structure, with how to do this. But also our experts here at the university conducted some training for teachers there that really important, how to engage the whole community of the school. Here we work with the fundamental human needs theory. If anyone is interested, you can Google that, and the main author is Manfred Max Neff, who worked with us for several years here. We work with the German Center, and the students of master's program we have here focused on that theory to bring together all the school community to this dream of being the school of renewable energies in the south of Chile. From 2016 onwards, more and more contents were included. The first cohort started learning this around 2016, and at the time they built their own solar panels. So I would like you to look at how the students are dressed here. They designed and created their own solar panels back in 2016. That is the first light bulb that was lit by energy, designed and structured by the students. That's some 8 years ago. Since then, the school got funding to build an experimental laboratory with the latest technology. The success was such that students started getting interested in this and enrollment was up. This is a free school. This is a public school with 95% of vulnerability index in Chile, meaning those schools students are low income, generally also coming from indigenous communities. More businesses and the regional government and other universities started getting interested in this experience. A group of business people of the area started funding this too, not only to build equipment, but also to help the students, get to see technology in different areas, especially, and also the teachers, so they can be, up to date in the latest technologies. This is now. Look at how the students are dressed now. Today, they have protocols, they have equipment, they work and they demonstrate all what they know. There is a teacher that says that a couple of students, if they could, they would sleep in the facilities. They just love to manage all the photovoltaic equipment that they have achieved. You can see different test equipment here, and also that newspaper they're showing is when the students traveled to Canada for a technology tour that was 2 years ago. So just to finish, this is a partnership, right, that started as engage research with the community. For us, was not easy. We were very used to the more consultancy kind of thing. They call us, we provide solutions, and then they would see what they do with that. No, in our case, this is a project that was completely, guided and pushed by the same teachers and the management, the students and their families in Payaco. And today they are also the owners of this experience. I'm more of an advisor there, but we continue working, and especially because there are some next steps that are really necessary. First, this is a very, fast changing technology. So the teachers and students need to be up to date with all what is happening. And we try to give them as much opportunities and connect them as much as possible. We try to promote tours for them to go to different places in Chile, but also abroad, so they can see those changes. One big problem we have today, of course, is female participation in the program. And that means, right, that it has been very difficult for us to engage more girls to go into these more, technology-oriented careers. Fortunately, we are working now with the Talloires networks and OSUN to try to understand better the impact of this project. We're trying to get to know what is happening with students when they leave, where are they located. So this is all part of a strategy, right, to know who should we target. How can we also, as I was saying before, bring more girls, bring more, unrepresented groups to this experience. And of course, or probably the project that we are pushing now with other teachers who are not from the technology area is the inclusion of climate change and climate justice, or social justice applied to climate change, in the curricula of other courses. What happened is that it created a bit of an imbalance, the success of the renewable energy in the whole school. So now everybody wants to be on board, and that's what we're trying to do, because, things change fast, and everybody, is interested on these experiences there. So I hope it was not too fast. This is a story of several years, and I just try to fit it in 10 minutes. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Patricio. I think it was very clear. So we would next move to the other side of the Atlantic, from Chile to South Africa. Our next speaker is Martina Jordan from the University of Pretoria. When you are ready, Martina.
I'm ready. I'm going to say good afternoon, good morning to all of you. I'm just going to share my screen. As it's showing. Okay, great. And I'm going to, there you are. Okay, so I'm Martina Jordan from the University of Pretoria. I'm Head Community Engagement Research at Mamelodi campus, and I will discuss the engaged research project that I'm doing with the Historical Society of Mamelodi. So in this presentation, I will cover first of all the University of Pretoria Mamelodi campus, the Mamelodi Township, then I will discuss the Historical Society of Mamelodi and the Digital Storytelling Project, as well as reflections on the project and the way forward. First of all, where am I? So I'm situated in Pretoria in South Africa, and I'm working at the University of Pretoria Mamelodi campus. Now, the Mamelodi campus is situated east of Pretoria. It's a township in one of the 7 campuses of the University of Pretoria. And this township is one of the townships around Pretoria. So there it is on the side, on the most side of Pretoria, or the city of Tshwane. This township was created in the 1950s when it was designated as a blacks-only area, under the apartheid's government, the Groups Areas Act. And then citizens were actually forcefully removed from Lady Selbone in the 1960s to the township, and the township is mainly Sepedi speaking. So we have 12 official languages in South Africa. So most of the people speak the Sepedi. The project that I'm doing it with the Historical Society of Mamelodi. And the aim of the project is that we want to visualize the history of Mamelodi. So the group that is involved with me is the Historical Society of Mamelodi. And it is, they are extremely passionate about capturing the histories and the story for the future generations. The members have a deep understanding of the dynamics and history of the community. The local history is part of the syllabus in primary schools, and there's actually not much written about the history of Mamelodi. And therefore, we want to create sources. So there are various projects that we started doing to capture the history of Mamelodi. So the Historical Society of Mamelodi has implemented several projects, including a digital storytelling workshops in collaboration with the Mamelodi campus, mainly with me. The videos created are, with permission, then shared on a YouTube channel of the Historical Society of Mamelodi, as well as the Mamelodi campus. And the community requested then thereafter a workshop on desktop research that was presented by a colleague from the Department of Informatics. Senior citizens now also preferred not always to come and make their own videos. So we interview them. And then the last project that we are doing last year was with the BA Honours students, where they started creating story maps. That was with the Department of History and Heritage Studies. This year we are focusing on teaching the secondary school learners on how to use the cloud-based video editing software and also capture stories. And the members of the Historical Society of Mamelodi is now also creating their own story maps. So the first projects that we did and still continue with is the cloud-based video editing software, where members of the community are trained in this cloud-based video editing software. We use WeVideo, and then they share their stories or stories about Mamelodi or life in Mamelodi. They develop little short videos. We incorporated now also a training by a master student from Merrimack College, where she teaches them on storytelling before we start with the videos. High school are now involved in this program also, where they are also learning to use the software and also capturing history stories of the township and life in Mamelodi. The other project that we are doing is to use the ArcGIS story maps, where we work mainly in the beginning with the Department of History and Heritage Studies. The students meet up with the members of the Historical Society of Mamelodi. It's a very small group of students enrolled in this course yearly, but then together with the member of all the members, it differs from year to year, of the Historical Society, they will then create story maps. Now, as part of this program, they also need to visit the township. It's not typical that everyone goes into townships around the country. So we specially organize a tour for them that they understand the community and the history of the community better. And this was, for instance, last year in 2023, that the students also visited the township. Then as part of this, the community and the students get trained on how to use the software by the Department of Geography. And then they work together to develop the story maps. And here are two examples of story maps that they created on the history of Mamelodi. The one was on the education of Mamelodi, and then the other one was on famous people in Mamelodi. So what is now exciting is that the members of the Historical Society of Mamelodi also learned now how to use the software, and they are now creating story maps on various aspects in Mamelodi and the history of Mamelodi. So what was now the outcomes of this engaged research project so far? A website was created where we share the story maps, where we share the YouTube channels, and also indicate any other activities that the Historical Society of Mamelodi is doing with the community. The main aim is that all this media is now digitally available on the World Wide Web. They also have a LinkedIn page where we share what they are doing on various aspects. And then they created a YouTube channel where we load up the YouTubes, even if it's poorly done, we load it up because it's part of the story of Mamelodi. And then these videos are also shared on the Mamelodi campus YouTube channel. Now, if I reflect about the last 2.5 years experience with the Historical Society of Mamelodi, I would go through the four points and indicate what was the value of the digital storytelling. I think, first of all, it empowered the community immensely. Many of them that do attend the training do not have basic computer skills. I therefore had to ask engineering students and IT students to teach them basic computer skills. They are very proud if they created their own YouTube and their own video. The desktop research is very popular with the community members. I think it's mainly to realize they can also do research, even if it's not on desktop level. The video recordings gave us the opportunity to record old pensioners or old citizens that were not willing to really make their own videos, but they could record their stories. One lady said it's the first time that I actually tell anybody this part of my life. So that was really empowering for us. And the story maps is a very easy way of sharing stories. What is great about this project is having the students working directly with the community partners to develop the story maps. And I'm very proud the Historical Society members now also creating their own story maps. So what is the way forward? We will continue with the cloud-based video editing software training for communities. We are heavily focusing now on the high school learners, and the plan is to have 30 story maps at the end of this year for the 30 years of democracy in South Africa. So watch the space. We want to make sure that we have a lot of stories out there and that people's stories are being told. Thank you very much. Thank you, Felix.
Thank you very much, Martina. So we postpone questions and comments and debate till the end? I should go next, and we leave Monica for the end, okay? So I will share my screen. My name is Felix Diaz, and I am with the American University in Bulgaria. Can people see? Yeah, my screen. I am going to be talking about a process of engagement with organizations, mostly public organizations that care for patients with disability, especially dementia, elders with cognitive impairment, also adults generally with cognitive impairment. And as a process of collaboration from somebody who comes from the outside, I'm originally Spanish, working at the American University in Bulgaria, and working in Bulgaria, and basically introducing systems, methods for assessment and intervention, ways of work, which are generally developed on the West, right? So the challenge here, or the sort of issues which kind of invite my reflection, are related mostly to this kind of encounter between academic and practical knowledge. I am with the American University in Bulgaria. Of course, I recognize the wonderful contribution of the Open Society University Network, which is funding this research with 2 grants, one in 21 and the one we are all involved in now in 23, 24. I started working with the Alzheimer Bulgaria Association. I started developing workshops with them, attuned to my discussion with the members of the association about what would be interesting to develop in Bulgaria, always with professionals. But gradually, after working with Alzheimer Bulgaria, I started working with municipalities and directly with staff at residences, okay? Staff who care for adults or elders with cognitive impairment in residences. Those were mostly supported by the municipality of Blagoevgrad and the municipality of Goce-Delchev in southwestern Bulgaria, where AUBG is located. Okay, so it has been a process of gradually working closer to the people who are hands-on on a day-to-day basis dealing with persons with cognitive impairment, mostly people with dementia. And the systems of intervention which I am promoting, or the general theories, the general principles, all of them have something in common, which is they are psychosocial systems for support, which are based in everyday life. Okay, and these are relatively well developed in Europe. There is person-centered care. There is the ethnography of communication disorders, which is an application of the ethnography of communication, particularly to people with difficulties for language and communication. The application of conversation analysis to assess persons with cognitive impairment. The application of functional pragmatics to assess persons with language and communication impairment. And here I am relying mostly in an instrument which we developed a few years ago in Spain, the Pragmatic Evaluation Protocol, en español el Protocolo Rápido de Evaluación Pragmática. And finally, a trend of work which I am sure you will recognize because it is becoming very popular, the resort to narrative, the popularization of narrative, the work of oral history with elders, and the use of storytelling in activities, okay? So all those are different approaches in the social sciences, in the health sciences, which I am putting together in workshops, which are adapted to the particular demands or the particular conditions and work in different organizations. Where I am training caregivers in these core notions as they relate to their everyday care, and I'm always working with the mediation of a Bulgarian English interpreter because I am delivering them to professionals who are Bulgarian speaking and mostly do not speak English. And I have to rely, and I don't speak Bulgarian as I should. I have to rely on typically a student interpreting English Bulgarian. Okay, so I'm in a position of a stranger, a foreigner, a Spanish professor from an American university, delivering Western European and North American academic and practical theories for intervention and assessment. Now, what do they have? How are they new? What are the particularities of these approaches? They are going definitely beyond the individual medical model of intervention. So we're getting away from notions of ways of attending disability, which are based on the denying competence, the denial of competence, notions of psychopathology, which see people as limited, as incomplete, and which base the intervention on a lack, instead focusing on everyday practice and human interaction and everyday relations. This means also promoting the value of knowledge, which is grounded on intersubjective experience, both because we are coming from general developments in the social sciences like ethnography or composition analysis, which value intersubjective experience, and because the forms of intervention we are promoting are based on everyday relations with the persons. They involve putting people who are in a process of progressive cognitive deterioration at the center of life and decision making, which is definitely involves a different approach to disability from what is typically conventional and what has been happening in Bulgaria for many years. They involve dedication and dedicating work and developing system for intervention for people who are close to death, which again is challenging because we are too accustomed to leaving aside or forgetting people who are in the final stages of life. Okay. How do these contents challenge, or how is it difficult or complicated to develop these contents, and what are the sort of kind of disjunctions which I am typically finding in the delivery of this content? We have to pay attention to self-activity in a environment where the typical reactions I was finding at the beginning in the workshops was complaints about what we cannot do, about the impossibility of doing things, which is a kind of trend or a force of inertia which is very common in Eastern European countries. So it means shifting attention to the relevance of what we can do, okay, in the real practical conditions. It means focusing on our own practice. It means reflecting about practice. So it is going to involve necessarily working on examples of practice and discussing them, exposing contradictions in our habitual practice and addressing them, and opening up the specific processes of reform in care for disability to exchange, debate, comparison, mutual learning, and so on, opening up a conversation, okay? In a situation where it is generally known that systems to provide for disability in Bulgaria need to change, there's a general expectation that they will change, but they are changing very slowly and in very clumsy ways, okay? This means, so finally, I just want to sum up with a series of notes on challenges in the course of practice, which basically I have collected from my evaluation questionnaires with professionals, okay? So the sort of responses I get, as well as my own reflections and my own discussions with interpreters who support me. There is a general problem with consecutive interpretation. Consecutive interpretation marks difference between me as a guest speaker and people who are working. It is very difficult to get together in groups and discuss openly in a fluid way when we are dealing when we need to be interpreting. So very often I would be leaving the group of people to discuss among themselves and just get a little bit of feedback at the end. That ends up being much more practical than interpreting everything. There is the finding, though, that academic theories, especially those which are properly related to practice, align well with common practices also, I mean, anywhere, okay? Not only in the areas where they were developed. This means the recognition and dignification of everyday work, basically finding out that people are doing what is in the textbooks, even if they never consulted the textbooks. And this should ideally, and this should be one of the purposes of the trainings, should ideally mean that participants can incorporate formal language to reflect about their everyday work. Okay, that would be ideally one of the principles of method. Generally, there's a big resistance to document in detail because of a tradition where disability work has been hidden for a long time. There's a lot of shame about disability work. So there are very clear institutional resistance. There's very clear institutional resistance to taking records, audio or video records, or even taking photographs, okay? And I come from traditions of applied linguistics, conversational analysis, ethnography, where documenting detail is fundamental in order to develop training, okay? So I have had to adapt this very much and rely on the current situation or general discussions based on memory of what we commonly do. And finally, there are different patterns of stress, time structure, dedication to detail, opportunities for time out between the work of an academic, the work of those of us coming from university, and people on the ground who are extremely stressed, working many hours and not getting paid decently enough, and for whom ideally training workshops should be an opportunity to step out and be able to reflect about work. But it is not always possible to reflect about work when we are under stress. Our patterns of stress are very different, so these are part of the challenges to continue doing this work, which for sure we are going to continue. Okay, so I will leave it here. Thank you for your attention. And we are jumping back to South America, to Colombia, with the participation of Mónica Lucía Espinosa from Uniandes.
Thank you, Felix. What an impressive work. Are you guys listening to me? Okay. Yeah, okay. So good morning to everyone. Thank you for organizing this, Felix, and thank you to my fellow participants in this webinar. We are going to talk about our partnership in the south of Colombia. It is a partnership with a rural community, and we are trying to reach something that we call grassroots sustainable future in Las Mesas. I will be speaking to you with my partner in the field. Her name is Jenny Gomez. So I will try to go as fast as possible. So here, okay, let me see. So we have first the location. We are in Colombia, in the south of Colombia, and we are basically in the Andean mountains where there is a lot in a region with a lot of biodiversity. This is what we have right now. We have the logo for the Peasant Association. It is called Flor de Mayo. And on the left side, you have some of the people from the association, especially the women, 3 women who are with us doing this. And on the right side, you will find the university team. And we are trying to do this in order to extend membership to other people in the area, to engage them through focal groups and to understand the point of view role of women in all this process without forgetting the importance of men participation. So what we are trying to do, and that is very important for me, the concept of endogenous knowledge and development, and what Felix just presented is very relevant for me. And the point is how we are going to work with perspectives that are growing from the inside out. It is not easy. We have wonderful experiences in Latin America. So first of all, we are taking methodologies that were created by indigenous pueblos in Southwest Andes, and we are trying to see how these methodologies will teach to campesino, non-ethnic oriented communities about the way in which they created what they call life plan. So, and we are trying to understand if there are gender perspectives involved in this process, at least for the Las Mesas people for the campesino peoples. So we have the MISAC experience, they call it life plan, and we combine this with the new endogenous development and Latin American experiences, mostly based on participatory action research. If we think about the MISAC life plan, they came up with this methodology. They were working on this since the 70s, last century. And the important thing for me has been to understand this process of self-recognition, self-discovery, self-reliance as a community, how they proceed with self-diagnosis, understanding the pros and cons in the history, how they develop research skills and systematization, and of course, how empowerment works in this way in order to promote participation and collective strengthening. So regarding the new endogenous development and the combination with Latin American experiences, first of all, we start with the idea of people-centered development, of bottom-up strategies, community-led actions, place-based experiences, wider networks and extra local arenas. The local aspect has to be, and it is in dialogue with wider networks, and that's very important for activism and participation, research skills, understanding multi-level governance, that is very important for the community I am working with, and the means of mainstream policy delivery. Of course, the background is, as Miguel Angel, for instance, showed us in his work, the background is social and environmental justice, and how to, it can be strange, but how to really make them to feel citizens and build citizenship within Colombia. So the collaboration and partnership continuum goes from on the left side, the extra local arenas and this partnership between community and university, and on the right side with the endogenous research skills. And the main goal is to promote autonomy and self-reliance, and also to create different articulations, not only community and university, but also, for instance, articulations between peasant and rural associations themselves. What we have then is really a hybrid endogenous exogenous model, where we are working these issues of self-recognition, self-discovery, self-reliance, empowerment, and something that is very important to us, which is building up cultural and social capital, not only economic capital or political capital, but how this community can do that in order to be a strong promoting social economy and innovation. right now we are just researching with this grant, and thanks to the Open Society University Network, the gender nuances in this process. And this is very important considering the context in which the community has been. The social fabric has been shattered by a complex history of state elusiveness, structural violence and exclusion of rural peoples, illegal economies, and the lack of strong strategies for self-recognition as campesino people with rich histories and future projects. So right now, I am going to give the word to Jenny Gomez. She is going to talk about how she sees the implementation of a life plan for the association and how she sees the relationship of endogenous knowledge and social economy in Las Mesas. Jenny, entonces te doy la palabra. With Jenny, we finish our presentation.
Good morning. Thank you, Monica, for this space. And in terms of endogenous knowledge with Monica, Professor Monica, we reflected upon these two questions that you see here on screen. The first is related to whether it is possible to implement a life plan for the association. In this regard, we spoke about Flor de Mayo, El Paraíso. We could say that the Flor de Mayo Association has a special trait, which is it is related to the unity and the love for the land. So as local people, we've always spoken about a very sense of belonging in that land. That's why we talk about Las Mesas as paradise. In this regard, I can say that it is possible to start a life plan for Flor de Mayo because both males and females who are part of this collective unity are together to start to forecast our own project to identify us as peasant community from Las Mesas. That is why, as a collective group, as a community, we are really persuaded that traditional knowledge, as a result of daily life, of the development, has increased throughout the experience itself from the peasants of Las Mesas. It is knowledge that would like to find or does not want to find absolute truths, to say it's put it somehow. As peasants, we know, we are aware that we constantly face social changes, especially public policies that have been more assistential in nature. In terms of the needs and the requirements of the transnational companies than with the local or peasant economies. I think the situation is one that is constant in Latin America. So that is why the peasant started to lose their ancestral knowledge. All that knowledge that is managed right there in the place has been contoured according to the development dynamics that the transnational companies have introduced. And so somehow we have lost the knowledge that our grandparents created at home in their farms around the fireplace. So that is why one of the obstacles for the Flor de Mayo has been able to create that life plan to achieve recognition. And we are called to clarify it in spite of the fact that we still preserve some of the heritage of our ancestors and grandparents. Many memories have been lost, and that's why there's been a fragmentation of the social and cultural and productive mesh of the region. Now, in terms of that second question, I could say that there've been some attempts to start an endogenous development right here in the land from what we all already know from our knowledge in terms of our culture, our own land. Yet, as I also said earlier, I believe that the main cause for these development become stagnant has been the lack of recognition as peasants, because we are still missing this more understanding of the interaction of man and nature that makes the land be the place to define us as a home, as part of our being, part of our identity. And this, therefore, has happened as a result of the transformations created in the way of living, in productive systems, in community lifestyle. In turn, there's a convergence, and it is part, not just part of the social and cultural and productive landscape or economic landscape or environmental landscape. This also has an impact. It's a simultaneous impact. In closing, I think that we should speak in depth in terms of the recognition of our peasant identity, to think about the future and to project something outwardly. Thank you very much. Thank you.
I thought you were going to show the video. Okay.
No, well, we didn't because we don't have the time. But if you guys know, let's go to the dialogue. Jenny is going to be around, and she will answer in Spanish in any case.
Good. Yeah, so I think I understand we have now 20 minutes for questions, discussion, debate, anything that, or people can tell us their own experience with similar situations. I have a general question to the other presenters, okay? Because, I mean, I think possibly all of the presentation, I mean, my presentation was kind of peculiar because I work very directly with professionals, and also professionals who are in a very specific institutional constraint. So their capacity to decide, to build up common language is relatively limited institutionally, although they have many skills and many abilities. My question is a little bit like, I mean, I can see most of us are informed by the anthropological tradition that, by some sort of anthropological tradition that respects and gives dignity to people's own systems for building up knowledge. And my general impression at the end of this session is we are confronting a general landscape which marks a huge difference between the European, North American, Western center, which comes with a kind of tradition of imposing academic knowledge versus common, popular, indigenous, more aggregative, more collaborative ways of building up knowledge. And my question is this a fantasy? Or is there a commonality, for example, into the communal ways of aggregating knowledge in South Africa and South America, even though historically they developed in different ways? What do you think?
If I may go, I think there is of course, listening to the case of Africa, the Memalodi. Sorry, Martina, if I am not pronouncing it right, is wonderful. Is the fact that you have this strong process of creating their own narrative and their own history, and giving people the space, place, skills, everything to do it. What I think, which is for me very interesting when we talk about endogenous processes, has to do with the fact that you mentioned, Felix, and is the attention to intersubjectivity, the attention to relationships. And those relationships are not only among people, human beings, but human beings in their life environment, their environments. And that is key, because we tend to forget that everyday activities, everyday practice is completely key to allow people thinking about futures. It's not something that comes from out, but you have in yourself. You have it in many ways, like you were mentioning, that you will work with people who have some impairments, but you need to access the way in which they understand their interactions with the social and symbolic world. So here, in Latin America, there are many grassroots experiences now and in the past. For me, the key point is to understand the singular aspect of this particular process, in which you have a community who lives in a very particular ecosystem, who has a history, they have a history, and how all that together can produce something new. Of course, there are things that are transect the whole research, and we share that with other communities in different parts. So that will be my point, to see if we can dialogue about it.
Yeah, I think it's a great question, and in our case, we our work has been very exposed to transdisciplinary thinking. So we try to look for this included middle, and in this struggle between the expert knowledge, expert external knowledge, and the indigenous endogenous knowledge. We are looking for those strategies in which we don't fall right in two extremes. Today we see a crisis of expertise. Probably you see it in the US, in Europe, and all over the world, right? Even Chile. We don't believe experts. We know what we want. And so it's too much of a backlash, right, for the traditional imposing stance that expert knowledge has had, especially in indigenous or small communities. We try to give value to both. At the same time, if possible, we try to create a space where those can coexist. And this has been one of the hardest things to do in our project. We, for example, we immediately rejected the idea of a devolution, meaning let's do all the job and later we put you in charge of all of these because we created it together, right? It was co-created. No, it just cannot have that logic. Within the work and the understanding of the problem and also the design of the strategy has to be guided immediately or from the very beginning from members of the community, which is also complex, right? The community is not just a stone called the community. Teachers are the people we work the most, but we know that we also have to work with their management or the people who is in charge of the school. If we cannot include all of them into the equation, into the work, then the teachers later will be caught in the middle probably of some type of disagreement, for example. So it is very interesting how you frame it, Felix, and at least our approach has been that of trying to find this middle point. Not that easy to do, though. It requires time, and you see the results in probably many more years than desired.
Yeah, I want just to say something, and in the context in which we are working in the north of Colombia, because of the discussion is in law, so we have to argue with theories and with academic resources the reasons of why the relationship between nature, people can be understood separately. So with that idea in mind, it's like, okay, we need to try to explain to the people in the court that logic. And with the anthropological perspective from people from Europe, it's impossible, because they have separated the relationship between subject and the environment, or they just have believed that the subject and the object are two different things and two different dimensions. And in this community or in this context, what they are saying, or what we are trying to improve even is the relationship or the understanding that we have of the community with the others more than humans, and the anthropology in that way needs to be improved, or just change the framework from each is speaking. So I think that is difficult because we have many complexities. It's not that easy, and even in law, because the people in law don't understand well why we are arguing that, and some of them believe that we are just saying that to don't have real discussions, or don't have the discussions about the property of the land, for example. But it's like when people say, I can't abandon this community because the water body needs me, or because the animals here needs me, or well, many things like that. So we need a different approach in the anthropological perspective. Since that is a task that we have from Latin America, and it's like to give a new horizon to the anthropological framework. That's all. Thanks, Felix.
Can you explain, Miguel, the more than human concept? Because I was kind of lost there.
There is an anthropologist that is called Marisol de la Cadena. She is teaching here in the United States, and she has a book, an article that she wrote with Bruno Latour, and it's called Uncommon in Nature. And in this perspective, what she's saying is that the territory is configured for human beings, but more than humans in the sense of the interaction with animals, mountains, and the ecosystems in general as subject, not as an object, if not in a different perspective. And this is also part of the ontological turn. And the discussions now are focused on, we are not talking from the subject of the research to objects. If not, in this case, we are talking subject. And the relationship is not separately. If not, we are trying to understand that the ecosystems is what it is because of the relationship with human beings. It's not pristine as the people for the context of the Amazon, for example. So the people in the north say that the forest in the Amazon, it is like that because time, I mean, no humans beings work there or produce that forest. But the indigenous community says, no, this is a garden, and we have planted this forest. This is not produced alone. It was because of us. And the same in other communities, of Black communities and indigenous communities in the north, for example, is saying, this is because we have produced this context and the relationship that we have with more than humans. Sure.
I would like to add something else, perhaps. I think what made this successful, my project, was the ownership. I'm still an outsider. I'm going into a Black community, not speaking the language. And I think that helped a lot, that there is a lot of how you work and who you get permission to and who does the buy-in to understand the basic politics that's happening in the community is also very important. And I think it was very important to get the buy-in, and that as soon as I had the buy-in, it was working. So that's something else I want to add.
Yes, I wanted to take the point that made Patricio, because I think that the question, yes, we are like informed by the anthropological idea that, you know, there has to be an importance given to people's perspectives, but that middle ground is very interesting. Our research also has been very transdisciplinary because we work with a volcanologist who is the person helping us to understand the volcano that manifests as a paramo in that part of the Andean mountains, and is very interesting. And we work with a person who is a specialist in climate change and biology, and we work with archaeologists, and we work with environmental engineers. But there is always this point for me, more than a middle point, is like how you work in that continuum where you have the university, the extra local arena, and the people without, you know, collapsing both. And I agree that is a very, very hard effort, and that you cannot, in current times, especially with the more than human discussions, you cannot try to separate, but to integrate into a view that help us to understand political articulations. And otherwise, we are going to keep talking about animism or concepts that are very anthropological and that do not have real direct impact or are very misunderstood in juridical or political context. So it is a complex thing, no? How people understand that, how you work with these bottom-up views, and at the same time how they interact with us. And for me, a very important concept, I didn't talk about it, but it's interculturality, how intercultural arenas are arenas that we are dealing with, and they are very complex. We are trying to use indigenous theories because we think it is very important to decolonize our thinking, but at the same time we think that you know, scientific thinking is very important here, and people in the field are very eager to learn everything. They become experts, for instance, in drones very, very quickly. It's amazing. And they understand all the technical aspects very quickly. So it's a very interesting issue that you raised there.
I would just like to draw attention to the comment by Inge in the chat, which I find very interesting, because I think, Inge, you're raising the question of how are the universities set up to support one way or one form of knowledge or another. Do you want to talk about this?
Yeah, it actually relates to your whole discussion about where is the knowledge, whose knowledge counts. And I enjoy the seminar a lot because I hear about all the different projects in Colombia, South Africa, and still wondering what you also wonder about. Yeah, that's a consequence question. I think our universities in Colombia, in South Africa, taking this knowledge from communities more into account than we do in the global north. And what is then the difference, and how do you do that differently? And I think we can learn a lot from that.
I just want to say something. Thank you for that question, Inge. I don't believe that the organizationality is different, actually, because we still are thinking that the model of the university is one and is the modern West model of universities. So we are not producing that kind of like, for example, in the context in which I'm related, that more like in the Universidad de los Andes. But for sure, there are examples of universities and also very close to the context in which Monica is working is with the Misak Universidad in the south of Colombia. Is an indigenous university that is producing an epistemological new perspective of what we must understand by a university and by the knowledge and the relationship with the knowledge. And also to say, I think that what is happening is that on the field, on the research field, researchers, as Monica, as many people here in Latin America, are trying to implement in dialogue with the communities, as, for example, Jenny Gomez was mentioned. We are trying to implement new epistemological perspectives, and it's in that relation. I don't believe that the university alone can produce that new knowledge. It's just in the relationship with the communities and in the horizontal dialogue with them. And in that sense, universities must to consider that perspective from which they are talking is a perspective that don't allow them to have horizontal dialogues with the communities and include those knowledge, like say, okay, that knowledge is the knowledge of life, can reproduce life, so we have to integrate that knowledge to our daily life. And I think that is into those two moments in which we can like produce a new perspective of the university. Thanks.
So this is opening an interesting question to me, which is, I mean, certainly, I think most of us would go about going to the communities and do things the way we like doing them, okay? Which I think for most of us means knowledge which is grounded in the community, in conversation with them, participant action research, and so on and so forth. But what you're saying, Miguel, I think is like maybe there's a way of designing the whole organization in a different way, right? And setting up universities which by design they are favoring indigenous knowledge in a different way.
I work in the Universidad de los Andes, like in a administrative job, and what I know is that for sure the configuration of the universities in South America, and I'm pretty sure that in Africa also, we were in Kenya, Felisa, and we understand that the configuration of the universities is just repeat the traditional configuration of the North. So it's very complex to just change that, as you mentioned, this hierarchy of the positions, of the hierarchy of the people, the person that teach and others that receive. It's very complex. But as I mentioned, I just want to say that there are examples of that in Colombia. I don't know the cases, for example, in Chile, or the examples, for example, in Africa, but in Colombia, we have examples of holistic universities, or universities that don't reproduce the hierarchy of this administrative hierarchy and then the positions of professors, for example. If not, are in constant dialogue with the social movement and with the life of people around. So it's difficult, but it's something that is happening now. So it's this optimistic thing also about it. And we have the Misak Universidad, it's in the south of Colombia. We have the University of El Creek also. There's another movement, indigenous movement in the south of Colombia. And they are trying to think this seriously, because what we have noticed is that the traditional university have no dialogue or had not talked with the communities by many years. So there is like a gap that we have to cover there for sure. Yeah, just that.
Yeah, just to add to your point, Miguel Angel, yeah, it's not a secret, right, that the university looks more like the military or the church in the structure, right? It's very hierarchical, and with the degrees and the titles are kind of similar. But at the same time, right, there are, especially in some areas of the university, I guess the protocol works as the protocol also works, in public administration. I've seen, as you, right, institutions that have decided, right, to try to respond more and more, right, to specific communities or to social movements. And I've seen also different results, right? There's a couple of Chilean universities that were doing a great job in that, but they ended up co-opted by interest groups and later, left 1,000 people unemployed, and with all the social drama that would bring. So I think the question, right, that we should explore is how to make this sustainable, how to understand the checks and balances, right, that must work in a university that wants to get closer to write this other type of understanding and producing knowledge. I am very curious, right, to learn more about that, and also on the examples in Colombia and other places.
Okay, I was just asking Cristina Calceva about the closing time, and she's telling me that to respect the interpreters are hired only until 5 minutes ago. So we're making them work overload. So maybe we should be closing. So thank you very much, everybody, for your participation. I have learned a lot. For me, it has been a wonderful experience. And also it is opening up new questions. I mean, I was very curious about this idea of different ways of organizing our academic work at large that will allow for grounded knowledge to grow. So I don't know. Thank you very much. If anybody wants to say a last word.
Muchas gracias. Thank you. Thank you,
Muchas
Felix.
gracias.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Very
Thank you,
nice.
everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.